Good evening and welcome to Travel News, sort of, Corona edition. My name is Maggie Gomez, the Nomadelle, more like the sedentary Nomadelle. Today is Friday, May 8th of 2020. And today is the second episode of my attempt to answer two questions. One, when are we going to be able to travel again? And two, what will travel look like once the restrictions are lifted? In my last episode, I talked about who I am and what brought me here. Simply for a year, I had been planning on backpacking throughout the world, and I quit my corporate job 6 months ago. I got rid of everything I own, and my flight was scheduled for last Friday, May 1st of 2020. Obviously, none of that took place because of coronavirus, so therefore I am very vested in understanding when we'll be able to travel again. Please keep in mind that I am not an expert. In fact, I had just started my life as a digital nomad. If you are a seasoned digital nomad or a beginner, if you're a freelancer, if you work for the travel or the tourism industry, or are a micro or macro influencer, or anybody in between whose livelihood depends on travel, this Travel News Corona edition, it is absolutely for you. I am absolutely interested in your opinion, so feel free to post any comments that you may have or any questions. And if you like this video, feel free to subscribe so you don't miss out on next week's episode. So with that said, this series of videos are for my own entertainment, truly. Definitely do not want to talk about anything negative, pessimistic. I don't want to talk about politics or even anything that is disproportionately positive, okay? We all know that we are on this together, but I just want the facts. I just want to know when I'm going to be able to travel again, when as a community are going to be able to come back to a somewhat normal of a lifestyle, although, you know, that's obviously very debatable at this point, but those are the questions, those are the answers that I am looking for. Last week's episode was entirely too long, so I'll try to make it as concise as I can. And in last week's episodes, I talked about Gary Kelly, who is the CEO of Southwest. And he is quoted saying that travel won't resume until places like Disney World reopens. So feel free to check out the video right here if you're curious about why he said that. But in today's episode, I want to talk about an article written by Pete Muntean for CNN Business. And in that article, which was published on Monday, May 4th of 2020, he quotes Greg Hart. Greg Hart is the COO for United Airlines, the Chief Operation Officer for United Airlines, and he is quoted saying that United Airlines employees should seriously consider voluntary separation from the airline. It doesn't come as a surprise that United Airlines, along with the rest of the airlines, had cut down operations 90%. Now, something else that caught my attention about this article, besides the sentiment behind the title, is that Pete Muntean also cites Warren Buffett, and I'm sure you know who Warren Buffett is, the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. Undoubtedly one of the most successful investors in the world. So Mr. Buffett, over the past weekend, he sold all the stakes he had on all major airlines. He was invested on Delta, American Airlines, Southwest Airlines, and United Airlines. He sold all of that over the weekend because he believes, and I quote, that it will take years for the airline industry to recover. So I'm gonna let that sink in for a minute, and I'm very interested to know what you think. This is my opinion. So if there are airlines that are not gonna be operational, if there are airlines that are gonna go bankrupt, if we are gonna be counting on just a few airlines when everything is up and running. We're going to be talking about a lot less supply. And therefore, I am thinking that the airfare is going to increase substantially in cost. So I would definitely expect to pay probably twice as much as what we were used to paying up until not too long ago. And probably that's the reason why we see right now so many advertisements from the airline industry, from the tourism industry, obviously with dirt cheap tickets everywhere after September. But, just be careful with that, because one, there's no way to know if in September everything is going to be back to normal. And two, everything that is bought after COVID-19, right? Make sure that it is fully refundable. And also, I would seriously doubt that any airline would provide anything that wouldn't have a transaction fee to change it. So definitely be very careful with that. I personally would not buy anything anytime soon by any means. So I don't know. It's up to you, absolutely. But that's my opinion. I would love to know what you think about that. Okay. And the reason why I say that airfare might be a lot more expensive in the future is because, there's going to be a lot less competition, right? So bailouts and politics aside, tourism is not going to be back the way it was anytime soon, at least not for this year, if a vaccine is not up and running. And that is a perfect segue for the next article. So let's talk about vaccinations. I think that up until this point, I was a little bit optimistic, maybe overly optimistic about assuming that a vaccine would appear soon, and then in a couple of months I was going to be able to travel back again. But the following interview between Anderson Cooper and a journalist and author, Laurie Garrett, for CNN Health made me rethink that. If you have a moment, I would strongly recommend that you watch the video. I will leave the link in the description down below, but I will summarize it for you in one sentence. And before you say anything, I know that there are a lot of theories or conspiracy theories flying around, so I do appreciate everybody's opinion, but I really want to focus on the timeline of when a vaccine could possibly be up and running. And Ms. Laurie Garrett describes that very well on what she believes that it could be the best case scenario, right? And we're talking about 18 months before we're able to see an active vaccine. Now, she emphasizes precisely that in the best case scenario, because she also talks about a scenario where a vaccine is not found, right? Because it has happened before. HIV, malaria, right? Those are viruses that up until now, we have not been able to find a vaccine for it. Now, allegedly for malaria, yes, there was a vaccine, but it's highly ineffective. So therefore it was took out of the market. And that's the reason why instead malaria pills are prescribed, not the vaccine, because it's not efficient. So, all that to illustrate that it has happened in the past where we have not been able to find a vaccine. And what would happen if that were the case? So let's think about that for a second. Would you feel comfortable traveling knowing that there isn't a vaccine for coronavirus? But let's take a step further. What if countries wouldn't open their doors to citizens or residents? Let's not even talk about citizenship, right? Residents of a country where there is a high incidence of coronavirus. For example, the United States. Wouldn't that be an interesting turn of events? I don't know. At this point, I don't think we can rule anything out, but I am absolutely interested in what you think. In talking about vaccinations, people have been talking about a vaccination passport in order to record a coronavirus vaccination if that ever becomes effective. So it's really not a vaccine passport. It's existed for decades, and it's called the International Certificate of Vaccination or Prophylaxis. And it's this yellow very archaic looking pamphlet. In fact, I check out this video right here where I talk about where to get it and how to use it. So this is what you need to be carrying whenever you are vaccinated, and this you have to keep inside your passport because airport officials are going to ask you for this when you travel. So this is what people call the vaccination passport. It's really not a vaccination passport. It's just a yellow pamphlet, and that is all it is. And for the time being, I think that short and medium term, we're going to be looking at domestic travel, mostly to state parks once they open, mostly by car. In terms of international travel, I honestly, at this point, I don't think that that's going to happen at the rate that we know for possibly 12, 18 months. That's now my personal opinion, that now that I am reading more about what's being done in order to get a handle of this COVID-19. So that is what I think. I am definitely hopeful that things will get back to normal eventually, right? As far as the CDC, no new news this week. As far as the World Health Organization, they're holding live conferences every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, all about COVID-19. So I'm going to leave a link in the description below if interested. In terms of the U.S. Department of State, we're still on a level 4 travel advisory. That means do not travel. Today, Friday, May 8th of 2020. And lastly, I would certainly be very appreciative of a like of this video, a subscribe. That would help me a lot, bring you free content every week. And stay home or whatever you need to stay strong, stay creative. We will see better times, that's for sure. This is Maggie, the sedentary Nomadelle, sort of reporting travel news, Corona edition from Cincinnati, Ohio. Good night, you all.